Time for sound design. Today I'm back with a video about the Akai MPC2000XL. I have it right here next to me on the desk. In today's video I want to talk about the note variation slider on the MPC. So if you're familiar with the MPC, there is a slider on the left here. It's called note variation, and basically it allows you to modulate or automate different parameters, either in real time or after you've recorded some notes, you can still adjust the add the variation. And this little slider can automate 4 different parameters. It's the tuning of a sample, the decay, attack, or the filter. Within the settings there is a range that the slider affects, so you can adjust that, and it's per sample as well. What I would like to do is walk through a few different examples and show you what you can do with this slider on the MPC2000XL. So I have created a little bit of a rhythm.
You're listening to the world's famous.
So the first example is with a vocal sample and using the filter to kind of muffle up the sound of the vocal sample. So the vocal sample that I have is from Malcolm McLaren.
You're listening to the world's famous. You're listening to the world's famous.
And then in order to use the note variation slider, I'm going to press Shift and the Assign button. And then you get the menu where you can assign which sound you want to be affected by the filter. So you just press the pad.
To the world's famous.
And then you can go through the 4 parameters. So I have tuning, decay, attack, and filter. That's the last one. And then the range is from +50 to -50. And now when you press the sound and use a slider, you can hear the effect of the filter.
You're listening to the world's famous. You're listening to the world's famous.
The kind of limitation is that you have to re-trigger the sound to have the new settings of the note variation slider. So when you move the slider and the sample is playing, it doesn't affect it.
You're listening to the world's famous. You're listening to the world's famous.
So this is something to keep in mind, and that's if you re-trigger the sample and then move the slider, you immediately hear the effect of the slider. So let's first just record the sample into the sequence that I have. This is the drum pattern I have. Very simple kick, snare, hi-hat. So let's record in this 2-bar loop a little bit of this vocal sample.
You're listening to the world's famous. You're listening to the world's famous.
So now I recorded the vocal sample, but I didn't use the slider. I could have done that, but what you also can do, there's a button called After above the slider, and if you press that, then the slider will affect the already recorded sequence of that note. So let me demonstrate that.
You're listening to the world's famous. You're listening to the world's famous. You're listening to the world's famous.
And now I can also record that. So overdub, play start.
You're listening to the world's famous.
Then the thing, if you record it, turn off the after button, otherwise the slider still affects the recorded sequence. And now you can hear that we started with the filter closed and it's recorded into the sequence.
You're listening to the world's famous. You're listening to the world's famous.
So as you can hear is that the vocal sample is more muted, the filter is more closed down, and then as the sequence goes, I open up the filter of the vocal sample. That was example number 1. Let's go to example number 2. And here what I want to do is I want to tune a bass note and record that in the existing sequence. So I'm going to mute this track for now. Go to an empty track, track 7, and I have this bass sample. And this bass sample is from a synthesizer that I recorded to the MPC. It's the note C. And if we now go to the note variation menu, we go to tuning. The tuning is from, in the middle it's 0, and then it's +1 octave, +120, and -120. So this is very low, this is too high, and this is the original in the middle. But what I want to do, I want to create a two-note bass line for this beat. So I want to have the low range. I'm going to put it on 0 so that it will play the original. And the high range, I'm going to put it on plus 70, which is exactly a G. So here it's 0, so it's the original pitch. And when I put it all the way up, it's a G above the C. So now I can play a bass line by using the tuning. And the advantage of this is, apart from that, it's really fun to play with the slider and play your own bass line. And if you really get advanced, you can pick a note in between and play a 3-note bass line. But the advantage is that you don't have to duplicate the sample. So with one sample, you basically create 2 notes and just play it in real time. And especially when you have a 2-note bass line, you can actually do that. It's not that difficult. So I loaded up a new track. I muted the vocal sample track, so we just have the drums again. I'm going to play the bass line on top of this and record it with the note variation slider. I'm going to play something like this. Let's see if I can do it in one go. So yeah, so that's the idea. So I play a double C note and then I play a G and then you use a slider to go back and do the same thing again. So this is how it sounds. And then together with the vocal sample.
You're listening to the world's famous. You're listening to the world's famous. You're listening to the world's famous.
So both the vocal sample uses the filter of the note variation slider and the bass uses the tuning. Now I want to show you one more example, and that is you can combine the note variation slider with the note repeat button. So over here it says tap tempo note repeat, and depending on your timing settings, I have it now on 1/16. If you press this button, for instance a snare, you can make a snare roll, but you can then also use the slider to tune the snare. So let's set that up. Let's put it from 120, so 1 octave, to 0. So this is the original pitch of the snare. And when I hold the note repeat button, when I press play on the sequencer, so I will solo a new track, then you can hear what I mean. By holding down the note repeat and changing the tuning of the snare, you can create a snare roll that also changes in pitch. And of course you can also record this.
You're listening to the world's famous. You're listening to the world's famous. You're listening to the world's famous. You're listening to the world's famous.
So that's a fun little idea. You can actually create quite complex beats in this way, because you can record all this automation with the slider either in real time when you record the notes, or you first record the notes and use the after functionality to record the modulation afterwards if you want to have more precision. Of course, this stuff is easily done in a DAW, in Ableton or Logic or whatever, but to be able to do it on these kind of old machines is still quite powerful. So let me know how you use the note variation slider, if you use it at all. I find the decay and the attack is not so useful as the tuning and the filter. If you're interested in MPC videos, I have a bunch more, a bit older ones, where I also explain different features of the MPC2000XL, so go check those out. As always, keep making music. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.
You're listening to the world's famous. 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 You're listening to the world's famous.